It's called the Delta Regional Authority, and we are a federal agency that works as a state-federal partnership to do community and economic development. Well, today we're talking about workforce training and development, and there's a lot of good things going on in Louisiana and South Louisiana about workforce, but it's about strengthening that connection. It's about not tinkering around the edges. It's about making sure that we are putting this as a priority for our economic development strategies, our growth strategies, our educational strategies, aligning all of the educational institutions, because when we look at workforce training and education, it is the #1 issue impacting economic development in this country.
We're training people for the jobs that are available. That's first and foremost, making certain that people have the proper skills to be hired by the companies that are moving to Louisiana and the companies that are expanding in Louisiana.
Historically, we haven't seen anything like this since the onset of the refinery expansion in Louisiana in the 1950s. So we want to be sure that we are able to take more advantage now, having the capacity in terms of our workforce to be able to get into these good paying jobs. We know as the refinery industry grew in Louisiana, these jobs today, starting salaries are $85,000 a year. We also believe that these jobs, and much of which will be in the chemical industry all over the state, are going to be high-paying jobs as well, so we want to be able to take advantage of that.
It's all about quality labor, not just labor, but quality labor. So that means excellent training programs across the state. Okay, not a little bit here, a little bit there, but across the board. And I think we're addressing as much as we possibly can the workforce issue across the board. So I think this particular event was helpful in bringing us all together, because it's on everybody's mind. I don't care if you're an educator or an HR person with a company, or a guy or a gal out there looking for a job. It's connecting the dots, and that's what I think the Delta Regional Authority is trying to do as well.
If you look at both ends of the I-20 corridor right now, with CenturyLink's headquarters being in Monroe and Computer Sciences Corporation building an 800-person technology center in Bossier City, we are going to have drastic needs in IT. And so, of course, to meet the most immediate needs, it will require us to recruit people from outside the area. But at the same time, they're developing programs with regional colleges and universities, both 2-year and 4-year, to train the workers that they're going to need in the future. So there are a lot of needs.
Workforce development is probably Louisiana's greatest challenge at the moment. We're very fortunate that we have an economic boom that is going to bring opportunities to our citizens that we've not seen in decades. We really want to work with governmental agencies, partners, to make sure that our citizens are prepared to take advantage and are qualified to take these high-wage jobs with benefits. It literally has the potential of transforming the landscape of Louisiana's quality of life.
Workforce development is on the front of everyone's minds, and today we're here to talk about just that. How do we develop the workforce for Louisiana? We happen to be in a tremendous demand environment. The economy is growing. We're seeing new jobs come to the state, and it's our responsibility to develop the skill set needed in order to be able to grow this economy and continue to flourish.
Why is DRA involved in this? What are we doing? What is this summit? What is our perspective on this? And we've been around for about 14 years. And I mentioned to you that Congress created us to be a partner in economic development, to be a partner with the local communities in doing economic development in 4 basic categories, right? We fund projects and do partnerships in transportation, basic public infrastructure, which can be the water and sewer projects, the traditional stuff. We do a lot of business development and entrepreneurship. In fact, one of the 2 major priorities that we have at the Delta Regional Authority, one is small business and entrepreneurship, and the second one, which is also our 4th category of funding, is workforce training and development. And coming from the world of economic development as a practitioner, it didn't take me very long to recognize that this issue was becoming more and more and more and more important, not only for economic developers, but for local elected officials, for business owners, for industry, for what we were doing in the field of economic development. And there are 2 things that we saw right away. We've been funding a lot of individual training programs for a while. We've been doing that as a part of our investment portfolio. But what we started recognizing as we engaged business and industry, and as we engaged state leaders, this issue of a system became very apparent. It became very clear that what's happening over the last 30 years, and we've been talking about workforce training and development for almost 35 to 40 years, and Ted Abernathy is going to tell you a couple of stories about that. And some of the same issues that we started talking about with one of the first reports called the Magnolia Report. And some of you all in here, I can tell, are old enough to, like Ted, that have been around that can probably remember that report. These same issues about connectivity and pathways are same issues that we're addressing today. But there is a very core difference. One is that in the field of economic development, we believe that we need to be engaged in this conversation in bigger and better ways. It's not just an educational issue. It's not just a community issue. It's not just an issue for families and parents. For so long, we have been demonizing, not only just in the region, but in this country, about two different tracks, right? You either are going to go to college, or you was going to be non-successful and you're going to be thrown into a vocational training program. Now, we don't call it vocational training, we call it career and technical training, right? It should never have been an either or. Because what we recognize now is that the career and technical track is just as important as the traditional pathway for a four-year traditional baccalaureate degree. And our four-year institutions have a very important role to play in that, just like our technical schools and our community colleges and K through 12. And so what we did is that we teamed up with our governors. We teamed up with the Southern Growth Policy Board, then under the leadership of Ted Abernathy. It's now a part of the Southern Governors Association. And we felt like, you know what? We see all this information. We see all this research. We're seeing the different programs. We're sitting down with business and industry. You all know it. You deal with this every day. When a company comes to your community, what is the first question 9 times out of 10 that they ask you about? It's not about the incentives. That comes second. It's education. What's the educational attainment of your people? What's the skill level of your people? Do you even have the workforce to deal with that issue? Then we talk about infrastructure and incentives. And just incidentally, 9 times out of 10 now, you know the number 2 question that we're being asked when we're trying to close deals? You may want to take a guess. Economic developers, you can't answer that. How healthy is your community? How healthy is your community? But to this subject matter, we have now seen an increase of business and industry, not only in this region, in our individual states, but in the country, that are finally saying, look, we have got to change the way we do business. The current models that we are using is no longer working at the level that we need it to be. We know that the dynamics are changing, demographics are changing that Ted's going to get into. We recognize that we got to expose our young people to the world of work much earlier. We know that we have to have a better connection. We know that we even have to now talk about life skills and soft skills. 15 years ago, even 10 years ago, if you was to bring that up as an elected official or a policy person, you'd get run out of town about talking about how to teach people on how to dress, how to show up, what it means to have a work ethic, and to pass a drug test. You'd have been looked at like you were crazy. But now, business and industry are going, not only must you talk about it, but it's got to be a part of your curriculum. In fact, we'll teach them how to weld. You teach them on how to be good workers. You give them the critical thinking skills. You create a true pipeline of skilled and educated workers, true career pathways all the way from the 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. You expose them to the world of work. You let them know that it's important to work as a team, communication skills, technology learning. We'll give them the specific trade. You give us a workforce to capture. So when you look at the dynamics of our individual states, they're all very unique, and there's all incredible things happening. I mean, the growth that is happening here in South Louisiana is amazing. You're the envy of so many places around the country, much less the other 7 states that we represent. And the number of employees that we know that you're going to need is tremendous. So the conversation is a little bit different, in that we have to talk about meeting that need because we just simply don't have enough people to meet the demand. And so we have to put other strategies in place. But while we're doing that, trying to address this as a system is critically important. So we produced a report with Ted Abernathy, Reimagining the Workforce. And we want this to be a start of the conversation. This is not a one-size-fits-all. This is not a magic bullet. This is not the answers to all of these issues. But it's a way for us to have conversations. It's a way to say, when you're looking at this issue, regardless of where you're at, here are some key components that we feel like is very important from the perspective of economic developers, from the perspective of meeting the needs of business and industry, which should be driving this issue from K-12 all the way in. Some folks are even saying, hey, the way we talk about this now needs to be K through J, K through job, not the traditional pathway or making our kids and our young people choose one way or the other. And we'll talk about those recommendations following in some of the panel discussions today, because we want you to know this report. That's why we've asked Ted Abernathy to come and to be a part of this conversation, to go through with you what we've found of studying this stuff that's been going on for 30 years. And we do it from the perspective of meeting the needs of business and industry. In our world, that's job number one. And that's an important perspective. The other perspective is that for us to be an echo chamber for what's happening, for us to elevate this conversation and say, hey, what is working right here in your part of Louisiana? What's not working? How are you engaging with business and industry? How can we take your model and duplicate that in other places? Nobody's got the linchpin on great ideas. We need to take those great ideas and share them. And how can we adapt that to our model? And one of the ways that we're trying to do that is we put forth some additional dollars, $1.7 million, to help communities start looking at this from a systems approach. When we start thinking about it, tackling that problem or tackling that particular issue in your part of the state, we want to put resources on the table to help you do that. And so that's the second part of what we're doing here today, is to let you know about those resources. We want you to go after those resources, put them to work to help address a system in your neck of the woods.
No matter what we do as professionals, we have to be prepared to be able to react and respond and do the right things that make things grow. We are blessed with an unusual circumstance called this oil and gas industry, more specifically the natural gas industry. And as the governor said, Lieutenant Governor Jordan said, who's counting is 60, 70, $80 billion of announced projects. In any good year in economic development, $5 billion is a lot. So when we're talking 60 billion, 80 billion, it's astronomical. U.S. oil production has increased 25% since 2008. We are ready to be the net exporter of energy in the next few years. So this industry, as we are referring to it, has always been one that's important in Louisiana. Chemicals alone account for $75 billion, and it's highly concentrated geographically in this Mississippi River-influenced region of our state. Certainly Lake Charles is important too because of its position on the Gulf of Mexico, and currently has the lion's share of many of these significant announcements, about $46 billion. The Baton Rouge metropolitan area, about $25 billion. As you come down St. James Parish, about $8.3 billion. Now, by the regions, we have a significant amount of economic development going on in the southwest area with new industrial development, totaling more than, as I said, $46 billion. Lake Charles is expected to see an 8% increase in employment, almost 8,000 jobs by next year. By next year. They have 4 projects that are valued at over $1 billion each. Construction of Sasol's ethylene cracker represents the largest single expansion in the history of the state of Louisiana. The largest single plant project in the history of Louisiana. In Acadiana, the Lafayette area is expected to exceed 4,000 net new jobs. And we've got a lot of activity there relative to Freeport-McMoran, Cameron Valve, and the number of jobs that are created. Here in the Bayou region, 5,000 jobs just in the Houma Thibodeau area as a result of offshore exploration services. And also, you recently announced new or expanding projects totaling more than $278 million and another 1,000 jobs on top of that. So our chemical industry is what we're going to be looking at most of this growth. It's about 80%. And chemicals in Louisiana is the 3rd largest export to the rest of the world, shipping $8.3 billion, or almost 15% of total production in the state of Louisiana, in chemical products to other parts of the world. Now, petroleum is important and agriculture is important. In Louisiana, they rank number 1 and number 2. And so basic chemicals certainly First stage production process chemicals dominate the chemical production, and that's where we're seeing so much of this expansion, where we had a pent-up demand, we had lots of cash in the system, and these companies have been waiting for the time. With the cost of natural gas, it's the time. Everything from fertilizer companies, we have $6.9 billion of fertilizer companies. LNG exporters, $23.2 billion. The liquefactors, $400 million. We've got Sasol at $7 billion, ethylene, Lake Charles Clean Energy, $2.5 billion, Methanex at $1.1 billion, South Louisiana Methanol at $1.3 billion, Dow at $1.06 billion, and it goes on. And so the refineries also account for expansions that they're doing, $2.34 billion in expansions, ExxonMobil, Valero, Phillips 66, Marathon, and refinery-related activity amounting to over $1 billion. Petroplex, Genesis Energy, that's a pipeline that's going into ExxonMobil, NewStar, and the gas-to-liquids plants, almost $16 billion with Sasol, G2X, and Jupiter. And it's not all gas, it's not all oil and gas, it's also steel. The Nucor plant that both administrations worked on, by the way, it's a $3.5 billion iron production plant. Phase one is about $1 billion, and so you're going to see that continually growing as demand continues to grow for steel, and as well as Bentler Steel in North Louisiana, which is almost $1 billion investment of an Austrian-owned company that is, again, that is driven by the natural gas business in the shale areas of the United States. Shipbuilding, something that you all are familiar with in this part of the world. Edison Schwest, their new LA shipyard in Houma, 700 net new jobs, going up to 1,100 in the near term. Port Fourchon expansions at $80 million just in phase one. You have 50 vessels under construction that are going to add 840 mariners as boats become active. Bollinger alone is at 3,000 now and could add another 400 to 500 jobs, $1.5 million contract for the Coast Guard Fast Response Cutter. And other large manufacturing includes Avalon Rare Metals, Entergy with their 9-mile power plant expansion, Trifigura, Union Pacific Railroad. But it's not all manufacturing. You've read about IBM in Baton Rouge, which is 800 plus jobs over the next 4 years. In addition, you have Emeritus, which is 300 net new jobs, GE Capital Technical Center in New Orleans, another 300 jobs there. New Orleans Healthcare Complex, again, we forget about the significant, we're talking about a $2 billion complex, healthcare complex that's going into New Orleans that's going to change the shape of the way New Orleans even looks. If you haven't been to New Orleans lately, you'll be amazed to see what's going on there in the form of Project Legacy, which is the VA hospital, which is going to add 2,200 net new jobs by 2016, and the new $1.06 billion big charity, as we call it, which is opening hopefully next year, which is going to be something on the order of a couple thousand jobs. And then you have the Golden Nugget Casino, 1,500 jobs. So workforce, obviously, is a big issue, and that's why we're here today. We're going to need more than 86,000 skilled craft workers through 2016 just to meet the needs of many of these projects that have been announced and hopefully will get started. In addition, we're going to need about 250,000 total workers to support the boom in this economic expansion overall. We expect that we'll net 40,000 new jobs every year over the next several years as a result of the growth. Louisiana is going to need almost 70,000 employees working in STEM fields by 2018. We're so proud to learn that for the first time in the history of Louisiana State University, their STEM-related educational programs, their curriculum in STEM has exceeded liberal arts. That's a good sign. The largest college at Louisiana State University is a College of Engineering. Now that's new. When I was in college, liberal arts was the big deal, right? And so today, it's nice to see that shift. So when we're asked the question about what are we doing about it, you can see the shifting is occurring. There is something going on. So we're expecting this year, for the first time in the history of Louisiana, our employment's going to be 2 million people. And so As we look at education, we know that we've not done as well as we should have. For the past 25 years, we once led the world in high school and college graduation rates, not so much. Today, we rank 16 and 20th in those areas. An ACT study found that 3/4 of our students entering college couldn't take first-year courses. We have to offer remedial courses. So we need to start to focus on K through 12, preschool. All of those issues culminate in giving our universities and our community colleges a proper product to work with so they can educate properly. And so 80% of the workplace today requires critical thinking and articulate written and verbal responses, and we need to be able to prepare our students through the K through 12 system. Yet we know that 30% of our four-year college graduates do not excel in these skills as they enter their college courses or their community college courses. And so the number one issue is workforce. So what we're going to do today is to talk about what is the state of Louisiana doing and how we're doing it. And then we're going to ask you to ask questions of our panel.
This is really the evolution of education in Louisiana, I think, more than anything. If you think about the previous generation or two of Louisianians, young people who left high school, there were three groups of people, really, and this goes back a lot further than one or two generations. There was a group that was going to go to college, and there was a group that was going to use their brawn, not their brain, to go into the oil patch and make a living. And then generations ago, there were, frankly, young women who didn't have the opportunities that they have today. That was the generations past. The current generation, or the second group really, are the ones we're in right now. The workforce folks who have had new opportunities. TOPS changed everything in Louisiana with educational opportunities for young people. Older students returning to get more education, to change jobs or enter a workforce that they never had an opportunity to do so before. Unprecedented opportunities for women to enter the workforce. And at the same time, increase opportunities for student loans that create huge debt for people now who want to seek an education. But our concern really needs to be about the future generation. And in so doing, we as Louisianians have to recognize some unfortunate facts. A terrible dropout rate of young people who are not pursuing a high school education. The highest incarceration rate in America. You just saw recently that it's improved a little bit, but we're still unfortunately at the top of that list. Low funding for higher education and relatively low tuition, two things that you usually don't see in progressive states. You usually have high tuition and low state funding, or you have high state funding and low tuition. We managed to get it right or wrong, really, with the bottom of both of those lists. But there's very good news in my perspective as to where we are. And I think Chris and we had this very brief conversation just a minute ago that Louisiana becomes a model for many states on where we are right now in workforce development and what we've done to recognize what we need to do to go forward. Two major developments have contributed to that. Until almost 20 years ago, Louisiana did not have a community college system. And I'm very proud to tell you that when I was in the state Senate, I authored the bill that created the Louisiana Community and Technical College System. There was some discussion but no debate about which should go first, I want to point out. Originally, the bill was drafted Louisiana Technical and Community College System. And I said, no, I think it needs to be the community and technical college system. No aspersions on the technical college system, but we don't have a community college program in Louisiana. We need to celebrate that and put that first. And we did. And the technical colleges, then the vocational schools, didn't quibble about that. We recognized that this was the beginning of a new system that we hoped was going to do great things for Louisiana. And I think in the past couple of decades, and certainly where we are now, we're seeing that that is happening. That has taken root. The vision then was to create an educational marketplace that would create jobs. And about 2 decades later, we're seeing that that is really starting to happen. We also have seen centers of excellence develop on four-year campuses that really didn't exist years ago. The John Foast Culinary Institute, which you mentioned, is a classic example of truly a center of excellence where people are coming from all over America and even internationally to get trained in the culinary arts, and a recognition of what great job potential that has. And as we talk about jobs in Louisiana, often we think of jobs in the hospitality industry as low-paying jobs. I had a great conversation with a hotel management executive this week who said, let me tell you something about low-paying jobs. I started as a dishwasher. I worked my way up, and now I'm running a multinational hotel conglomerate. So the opportunity that he had to start at the bottom and work his way up is an important component when we kind of dispel the notion that those are low-paying jobs. You got to have some low-paying jobs for people to start and provide work in the service industry, and the goal for everyone is to move up to other positions as well. But what we've now seen is the convergence of the maturity of this educational system in Louisiana, looking for and matching the demands of an emerging workforce, and an unprecedented spirit of cooperation to make, I think, our future very, very bright. There are several things that have contributed to that, and I want to mention them all briefly. Most of you in this room know these, and you're familiar with it, or you work within this, but I think it's really the example of why things are working so well. Two are acronyms, WIC and WISE. Two are START programs, Jump Start and Fast Start. The convergence of all these programs working together is creating some tremendous opportunities for us. Jump Start supports the recognition that skilled jobs are meaningful and encourages selection of a core path for those who may not be seeking a four-year college degree. The 2011 Harvard report, Pathways to Prosperity, tells us that in 1955, only 30% of the jobs in America required a four-year degree. And in 2014, that number is about the same. So we've got to recognize that the vast majority of young people, or really any people in the workforce in a state, particularly a state like Louisiana, don't necessarily need four-year degrees. But we've got to have those who do excel and can get those four-year degrees in engineering and what have you to satisfy the job needs that we have going forward. The Workforce Investment Council directs the Occupational Forecasting Conference, which obviously is trying to figure out what kind of jobs are we going to have available in Louisiana as we go forward, because we ought to be preparing people for those jobs, not jobs that aren't going to exist, but preparing them for obviously what the forecast tells us the needs will be. And we're starting to think about making certain we do that. The WISE program, the Workforce Innovation for a Stronger Economy, is really an unprecedented program that allows funds to be distributed to post-secondary institutions based upon a gap analysis. Where is the need? Where are we going to have jobs created? And what can your particular institution do to satisfy those needs? The four systems in Louisiana, the LSU system, the Southern system, the University of Louisiana system, and the LCTCS, are now engaged in what is literally an unprecedented level of cooperation, sitting down and talking about what the needs are and where the money should go to satisfy those needs. Not everyone, obviously, is going to get everything they want. As the Rolling Stones teaches, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometime, you might find you get what you need. And those various systems are getting what they need to answer the call for the type of jobs that we're going to be creating in Louisiana. And then the Fast Start program, which is LED's training program, an incentive program made available to businesses that are coming to Louisiana, businesses that are expanding in Louisiana, have jettisoned economic development recognition nationally to the top of the list for Louisiana. That Fast Start program says to a company, if you come here, if you expand here, we're going to provide the kind of training you need for the type of workers you need in your job setting. It's a great program. It's being copied by other states as well. It should be, because it was based on what Georgia did and Louisiana followed suit. And I think that organization, LED, is doing a tremendous job with that particular program. Now, incidentally, the legislature is going to be looking at credits and exemptions and exclusions and what have you in Louisiana's tax code going forward this year, and we've got to do so very carefully as that process continues, because the Kiplinger report told us just a few months ago, or a couple of weeks ago actually, that Louisiana actually has the third lowest tax base of any state in America. We often don't think about that or believe that as Louisianians, but that's what the Kiplinger folks had to say. And the Tax Foundation a year or so ago said we had the fourth best program overall tax-wise. So we've got to be very careful as we review what we're doing and how we're making that work. Think about the projections for growth that we have right now in Louisiana. Depending on who you talk to in economic development, anywhere from $60 to $70 billion of development on the horizon for Louisiana throughout the state, predominantly in the southern part of the state, on the coast, where our port system is a tremendous asset that we have, but multiple billions of dollars of potential business coming to Louisiana. These companies that are expanding in Louisiana are doing so because they obviously think they can make money, and they're convinced that there's a workforce here that can satisfy their needs, and Louisianians are reacting by saying we better be able to do that. And we're thinking about ways that we can make certain that we satisfy the job demands of those folks who are coming to Louisiana. Look at what's happened in Baton Rouge with IBM hiring 800 people and building a new facility in downtown Baton Rouge, looking for obviously computer science graduates and sharp folks who can handle that obviously growth industry for America. Look at what's happening in North Louisiana with CSC in Shreveport-Bossier area. Again, technical jobs, computer-related jobs that require technical expertise and a great deal of knowledge and a talented and trained workforce. Look at what's happening in this area. Look at the resurgence. It's always been surging, but the resurgence of the oil and gas industry for this area. As Charlotte mentioned, before the spill, the lowest employment in America was in the Houma Thibodeau area for months and months and months. And now those same numbers are being replicated today as we look at the possibility of the oil and gas industry really coming back even more. And think about the dollars coming to Louisiana with the Restore Act and with Go Mesa to finally recognize what so many of us have talked about for a long time, the need to save America's wetland and continue the culture and way of life that is such a part of the folks who live along Louisiana's coastline. Something that should not be forgotten, the important cultural aspect of making sure that we can sustain this oil and gas industry, the seafood industry that is so dependent upon the folks who work in this beautiful part of Louisiana to make great things happen. The great Louisiana writer Harnett Kane described this area that we enjoy so much around here like this. He said, it is a place that seems to be unable to make up its mind whether it's earth or water, so it compromises. And that compromise is the coastal marsh of Louisiana that we're losing at the rate of about a football field every hour or so, and we cannot sustain that, and we've got to do something about it. And fortunately, the right things have converged in our lifetime. An unfortunate act in the Gulf is precipitating a great deal of money finally coming to Louisiana, and through the efforts of our congressional delegation, finally getting our rightful share of offshore money that's going to be coming to Louisiana beginning in 2017. All that's going to mean more jobs and the need for trained workers. What I'm talking about is important to the people in Shreveport and Shongaloo and Sheboygan as it is to the people in Chauvin and Cutoff. Because if Louisiana can't keep doing what we're doing to supply America with energy and with seafood, all of America loses, not just those who live on this particular coast.
This Workforce Development Summit is extremely important to us. It's extremely important to the businesses and the people of this region. And just to give you a little bit of background, Nicholls State University has about 6,300 students, have about 632 employees. We provide about 80% of the nurses for this region, and we provide about 80% of the teachers for this region. More specifically to some of the business and industry needs, we are developing and have developed very strong programs that work hand in glove with business and industry, particularly in the Petroleum Engineering Technology and Safety Management Program, in the Maritime Management Program, in the biological sciences that are working to preserve our coast and bring about coastal restoration, and in the ever-present and newly rising culinary area that we think is really key to this region. Workforce development is kind of personal to me. My father was kind of
a going nowhere guy in the south side of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, way back when, and his mother died when he was 9. His father worked in a dirty, dangerous job on the railroad and lost an arm and was unable to work. And so my father's outlook for work and a career was not very bright. And then a couple of things intervened, and one of them was affordable, quality higher education at the local public institution. Some great philanthropy by donors in the area, and also by government assistance through the GI Bill. And through that, he was able to come from those humble beginnings to complete his doctorate at that local state university, and to get into a new emerging industry, the aerospace business, which was not happening in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And that industry, he grew in that industry and was part of the space programs, and actually delivered papers and presentations and wrote books worldwide. And I look at that as sort of motivation to me to make sure that we continue that drive, continue that innovation, because we are preparing students to be in this workforce. Absolutely. We need to do that. We must do that. We are also preparing for any changes that come about through the innovation that's going to change the workplace itself. And I think that the programs that we do in partnership with our great friends, I know Earl's here at Fletcher Technical Community College and at Delgado and at the other community colleges, we work together with them to ensure that students can see a pipeline to complete their education, to get in the workforce, to create to engage in good jobs, and at the same time be involved with the creation and innovation that's going to create a new face of the workforce in the future. So again, I welcome you all here.
We're a local development district. Since 2000, since the Delta Regional Authority has been around, we have been an avid partner with them. We've done a tremendous amount of good. But I want to highlight some very important facts about the DRA that you may not know. Because of congressional award or allocations that they do the best job of any federal entity known to man. And I want to reiterate that he leverages for every dollar that he gives to a local development district to do a project, 22 other dollars are thence invested. And that is amazing when we talk about leveraging. And I want to congratulate him on that. What it's meant to our district is amazing. There is not one parish that we have not done a job in with the help of the DRA. They have brought tremendous amounts of revenue to our region. We're very fortunate for a close ally like Mr. Massengill. And I want to just say that in our office, we always talk about, we need to go to Uncle Sam for money. In our office, we say we need to go to Cousin Chris for the money. So he's been very gratuitous to us, and we appreciate that. And my last comments, I want to tell you that when you're in need, the DRA is there to help. We in Louisiana have seen this firsthand just recently. The Delta Regional Authority awarded South Central Planning a grant to assist a neighboring district to help revitalize and to reconstitute that district. And the DRA stepped up without even a quimer. I mean, they just got right in there and did what they needed to do. And I want to tell you, thank you from the bottom of our hearts and the other districts' hearts as well, because without that money, we wouldn't be able to do the things that we need to do and make the achievements we're going to make.
You come to this conference today with your innovativeness, with your opportunity to offer to us and to others clues as to how we can increase this workforce. Our partnerships, the local technical college, Fletcher, with Nicholls State University is very innovative. I'm learning that other technical schools are creating curriculums that expedite graduates, expedite training, expedite getting people out into the workforce, and that's key. Chet Chasson is here with the Port Commission in Port Fourchon. I can't describe to you the traffic that happens here at 5 o'clock in the morning heading down to Port Fourchon, or the number of people number of states represented here in Lafourche Parish, working offshore to create energy for this country. Workforce development is our 10,000-foot level right now, and we're working on it daily. We're asking you, and I guess in a welcome you have to say all kind words, but at the same time, we're also begging you to spend your time today collaborating and coming up with new ways to get people into the workforce and understanding now what it takes. We have the opportunity. It is such a wonderful time to be here in Lafourche, here in Louisiana, because things are going so well. Help us continue this progress.
So our analysis shows that where we really need a whole lot of new graduates from our education system is at all levels of the education system. A really major gap right now between the supply and demand is in the industrial construction crafts and in the manufacturing operations positions that will be opening up as these plants get built, as these activities actually come into operation. So we absolutely must radically increase our production of construction craft workers and manufacturing operations workers. And there's some tremendous activity with a lot of different sort of revenue sources and a lot of different plans behind them at the LCTCS system to do exactly that. At the 4-year level, we need many, many, many more graduates in computer science. I can't even tell you how many more graduates in computer science we really need. Engineering in all fields, engineering technology at both the 2-year and the 4-year level and above. We also need data analytics people. This is something that's very interesting. This is a relatively new field, but people are being employed in data analytics across almost all the industries that we have here in Louisiana, from oil and gas to healthcare to the IBMs, the CSCs of the world, and so on. Data analytics and banking, I should mention that as well. Data analytics is becoming really the wave of the future. And it's the type of data analytics that's really highly quantitative and typically associated with heavy-duty business programs or the computer science programs themselves. And then finance and accounting. As these operations are getting underway, there's a lot of need for really sophisticated technical finance and accounting people. So that's a lot of what we need in terms of new graduates. But one thing that's incredibly important to recognize is that we also need a lot of experienced professionals. And part of that will entail recruiting people here to Louisiana. One of our priorities at LED is to bring back what we call our expats, those young people that we lost to the brain drain over the last few decades and have gained really terrific experience in fields that matter here in the state. We want to be able to offer them the opportunity to bring their families back here or to come back and raise their families here if that's what they want to do, and we know a lot of them do want to do that. So that's one of our priorities. But we also need a much better pathway across that wall between graduation and taking the job. We need to be providing our students work experience, relevant work experience while they're in school, and we need good apprenticeship models that will allow people to transition effectively between the end of their education and the career that they truly want, the real career trajectory that they want.
The website, laworks.net, the hire system where a person goes in to register as someone looking for a job has been changed to where the jobs are ranked by stars. They're 1 through 4 stars or 5 stars. 5 stars are the jobs in the most demand that pay the best, and it goes down all the way to 1 star. So, a young person can look at this and when he's thinking about a possible career, he can do a search to see what jobs are really in demand. Another excellent tool. So again, just to reiterate, in Region 3, it's all about public awareness about what jobs are actually in demand here and what jobs pay well here. If you want to have a career, you want to have a family, you want to build a home, buy a nice automobile, these are the areas you should look into. And again, some of the training, it takes in as little as 6 weeks, a person can be trained and go to work.
We surveyed our members. get an idea what the game plan was currently, what we were doing, what they were doing to get their workers prepared for offshore. We got the information back and we got a lot of interesting narratives from that, in that there wasn't a streamlined way that offshore and oil companies designate or certify their workers. There was different degrees of the requirements needed for different companies, which was interesting and not something we were expecting. So with that, we then interviewed all the different state agencies, both the ones here to my right and a number of schools, to figure out what currently was going on. And we were honestly blown away. There was a lot of really, really good programs out there that in a lot of cases maybe we weren't aware of. And so it kind of tilted our focus a little bit to say maybe we can just marry this better. We can connect what's already existing, what we need as an industry, and go from there. We don't have to recreate the wheel. In a lot of cases, we have those programs that can solidify the worker that we need. So through all that and those iterations, we kind of realized what the MOU does is sets up that conversation that we're now having with those different entities in the state, both in the state agencies and at the universities, to figure out what that curriculum needs to be in order to prepare those workers. And as an industry, it's become obvious to us kind of the things that we can do to better assist the schools are three things in general. Number one, we can have a better handle on the curriculum, on what it is our companies are going to need for tomorrow's offshore energy worker. We also can supply the equipment. With these rapidly changing technologies that I discussed, these things can get out of season in just a few years, and we need our students to be working on the up-to-date equipment. Also, we're going to need help in recruiting the right faculty to teach these positions. In a lot of cases, this could be retired offshore workers like the ones I mentioned in the Great Crew Change, and we're going to need to have a more hands-on approach with that. But it's been about a year to get all this in place, and we just did sign the MOU, I believe it was last month, maybe the end of July. So we've gotten to that point. There's still a lot left to do, but I think it was an important milestone to get there and at least have us all on the same page and at the same table in order to continue going forward. There's going to be some issues, some challenges that we still foresee, but I think together, collectively, we'll be able to achieve that.
What do you do when you're in a community that's seeing a 15% population growth for roads, Pat, right, that aren't supposed to handle a community of 125,000? They were built to handle a community of 60,000. And this is happening overnight. So the challenges that we face in workforce development and re-attracting people to Louisiana is a across-the-board issue. There are several areas that we need to get active in and we need to begin to address. And those of you who work for companies that are doing work in the area, I encourage you to Randall, correct? Do what Randall did. Go out to some of those non-traditional, listen, anybody that has a job can go to the local school and throw a job fair and participate, and that's great. But you're gonna miss some of those young people that may not be at school that day, that may not think that they're on a track to go to a 2-year or 4-year school, but you know where they're gonna be? They're gonna be at Reverend Smith's church or the community picnic or whatever it may be. Reach out there. Community groups that are doing local beautification projects for a community. Listen, no young couple's going to want to move into a dilapidated downtown area or a cookie cutter home, even though they're making great money at a great job with a great company, if there's nothing to do, if their surroundings aren't pristine, if the education system isn't great. So you got to look at those things. One thing that was touched upon is the skill of engineering that is in such high demand here. We only have a finite amount of engineering schools in the state of Louisiana. Texas triples that number. So let's use a random number. Let's say that our engineering schools at UL and LSU and wherever else they may be graduating 200 engineers a year. But we need 16,000 engineers today in the environmental sciences, not only the petroleum sciences, and the construction sciences. So where are those engineers going to come from? They're going to come from Texas, right? So we have to pivot from an educational standpoint on where we're going to be offering the degrees. There's no reason schools that are right here in the middle of the action, so to speak, like Nicholls, shouldn't be offering engineering. But we're not. We did in the 70s during our last boom, okay? Calcasieu. Look, Calcasieu Parish in Katy, Texas. They're gonna struggle with the same problems that we're gonna be struggling with across South Louisiana, and that is attracting quality people to areas where they have an opportunity to not only learn the trade, but learn it where they're gonna be working. Not learn it 2 hours away and have to commute either through an internship with a company they may have a lead with working for, but actually in the community, getting the on-job training that these survey companies, these geotechnical companies, these engineering companies want. They want to hire someone that they bring into their company, show them this is where you're going to work for the next 5, 10 years. This is the work you're going to be doing as soon as you graduate. So that's just another area that we need to work on, and we'll be on our way. And it's great to be a part of this panel, and it's great to see all of you willing to engage on these discussions.
The Delta Regional Authority is 8 states, 252 counties and parishes, about 10 million people, 200,000 square miles, and so we run from basically the lower tip of Illinois all the way down to New Orleans, and we take in a part of Alabama. So there's lots of great things happening in the Delta region. Jobs are being created, businesses are being formed. Yes, we have our challenges. Every state has challenges, and we're addressing those challenges, and we're seeing new jobs. We're seeing the economies grow, particularly right here in this part of Louisiana, and it's exciting to see all the growth.
We're really a great success story for the whole region with the progress that's been made, getting the various entities that educate people and are interested in workforce development to talk to each other and to work together. And really Louisiana's been at the vanguard of making that happen. It's very exciting. With all the business that we anticipate getting in Louisiana over the course of the next several years, we want to make certain that the workforce is properly trained at the right place and as economically as possible, and with an eye toward the jobs that are going to be created in areas that'll need Louisianians to work.
We've had extraordinary announcements as a result of the natural gas phenomenon in Louisiana. Probably between $60 to $80 billion in announced projects that are going to occur over the next 5 to 10 years. As these projects occur, they will need construction, they will need people to operate the plants and facilities, and so we're very concerned about having an adequate workforce so that we can take advantage of this extraordinary opportunity.
There are opportunities like there haven't been in a generation for individuals in Louisiana who will make sure that they have a good education and that they have a certified skill coming out of either our 2-year institutions in the community technical college system or a 4-year degree in order to get good, well-paying jobs here in the state of Louisiana. And these are going to be in a variety of areas, but especially as they relate to the chemical plant expansion that we're going to have and the petrochemical plant expansion, all as a function of the low cost of natural gas, the availability of natural gas, and the pipelines we have in the grounds in Louisiana, as well as the river and the coast and all of the port facilities. So strategically, as far as the world is concerned, Louisiana is ideally situated to take advantage of this opportunity, and that's going to afford opportunity for people in Louisiana. And it's up to us to make sure that the opportunity is available to them, but it's going to be up to the individual to take advantage of it. And so we have to do our part by funding the institutions. The individuals are going to have to do their part by studying, being prepared, being able to pass a drug test, having work ethic, and the initiative to actually take advantage of the opportunities that are going to be there.
They're addressing needs at the K-12 level through Jumpstart, course access, higher weights in technical training and the financing formula. Then the 2-year schools, colleges are really revamping the way that they are providing training. They're working with employers in close partnerships at unprecedented levels. Higher ed is certainly engaged, and the legislature just passed the WISE Fund, and they're creating partnerships to focus regional workforce development initiatives. And then, of course, business and industry is there every step of the way. It is a full court press from the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry. We are also looking at initiatives such as hiring veterans, hiring former offenders. We have the highest incarceration rate in the nation, and about 60% of those incarcerated are there for nonviolent offenses. So we really want to work with corrections to make sure that some of these ex-offenders have jobs waiting for them when they get out, don't reoffend and contribute to the economy.
Fletcher Technical Community College and South Central Louisiana Technical College are focused on serving communities. We have a large community that we serve. We've actually got 3 or 4 parishes that we primarily serve but our region is diverse. But there's many construction jobs, as Dr. Sullivan has talked about in some of his stuff today. Our region is diverse. We have oil and gas jobs. We have marine. We have lots of other things that we're working with right now. In the community college, we're continuously having to change, adapt, and modify to meet the needs of industry. Every business and industry changes daily. To stay in business, as a community college, we got to be ready to change with that industry so our students are ready to go to work when they finish with us.
It's having the adequate capacity K through 12, that means kindergarten through 12th grade, for our students to be able to have a standard that is going to ready them for post-high school education opportunities. That means community college, vocational technical programs, crafts, skills, and going to college to learn a profession. And that can be technical, professional skills from engineering, anything in the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics world, the STEM world as people call it. You know, for the first time, our flagship university, Louisiana State University, the enrollment in engineering has exceeded liberal arts. So we're very pleased with that. They just had, this past month, a job fair on the LSU campus with over 700 recruiters from over 150 companies coming in to recruit students, and that's pretty awesome. So the placement of our students is part of the equation. So from kindergarten through middle school to high school and then after, the proper training is going to be important to help our students, our citizens, our young people become part of a workforce and have a good standard of living.
It's a good problem to have when you're at 3.7 unemployment, but it's still a problem. So, I mean, it's something that's not going to get better. Is going to get even more demanding. So I think the challenge is here to stay, and it's going to get bigger. So we have to rise up to be able to meet that challenge.
I think it's important to also have really good relationships with nonprofit organizations whose mission, part of which may be to help their client base find employment that takes them out of poverty. So really, we are going outside the normal boundaries that we would look at in workforce, and this even includes churches. I've been developing relationships with large churches who have actually hired staff members to help their congregants with needs like this. So it takes a village.
This is a great gathering. It's a very impressive agenda throughout the day, and it's going to be a great opportunity to learn a lot about Louisiana.
We always have to be looking at ways to improve the system, and that's a big part of it. We have to look at workforce training and development as a system, not as individual programs or individual training programs or individual initiatives even. We need to look at it as a holistic system and make sure that we're meeting the needs of business and industry. That's job number one.
If people have questions like more information, what should they do?
DRA.gov. Go to DRA.gov and they can look at our report called Reimagining the Workforce. We did in partnership with the Southern Governors Association along with the Southern Growth Policy Board, and that's our toolkit. That's our framework of how we move this issue forward.